Fine. So we talk about linguistics and language, right? Which is nothing but called as the code of communication. Uh, Before we start this, let me ask a kind of a question. Have you ever paused to marvel at how humans communicate? Have you ever been thought like how humans start communicating, right? And what are the ways through which they start communicating? So you will see that what from sharing stories around ancient campfire, like in the old time, what do we find out? How the people do the campfires, and now in the at present, you would find out how people through the technology means send emojis. Do you know emojis? Right. So why? Now, those are nothing but called as a means a way of communication, right or not? Earlier they used to sit around before the campfire and they communicate with one another. But at present you would find out the communication have a very different or diverse way. You would find out people do not even write the text; they send the emojis, right? Emojis in text messages, right? So language has always been, you can say, our most powerful tool, isn't it? But how does it all work? That's a question. So if you talk about that, uh, so we discussed the fascinating world of linguistics, and which is known as the scientific study of scientific study of language. So when we say that linguistics, it means the scientific study of language, isn't it? And we know that language, or when we ask a question, what is language? Language is more than just words, isn't it? So at its heart, it is a system of sound. It is a system of sound, symbols, and rules. Sounds, system of sounds, then symbols and rules that allow us to express what? Ideas, emotions, and information. Isn't it? So, but how? Right. Language, if you talk about that, build connections. Build connections with whom? Build connections with others. Right. Second, it pass down traditions. What does it do? It pass down traditions, stories, and knowledge. That's what language does. Shape and evolve cultures. So three things we find out. It build connections. Second, it's called as a tradition, stories, and knowledge passed down to the next, isn't it? And the third one is called as a shape and evolve cultures or change cultures. Whether it is spoken, written, or signed, right? Or signed, you can say that like that. Signed. So any kind of a way, languages are bridge. Bridge means connection. So connection to understanding one another, right? But here is the catch. It's not just about words. It's a complex system. Complex means called as a difficult system that involving sounds, grammar, meaning, and sounds, grammar, meaning you may speak. But if you don't have a good grammatical sentence, then it doesn't make any sense. So, second thing is called as whatever the way, whatever the word you feel, you can't say that also. You need to know the meaning of it. You need to know about the context where it's supposed to use or means how you use it. Right. Now, when we talk about that, means what is language or sorry, what is linguistics? We understood about language, right? What is linguistics? When we talk about linguistics, yes, we can talk about that. Language is the if language is the art of means what do we say that if language is the art of the communication, right? Linguistics is the science behind language. Science behind language. How? Now, linguistics study language to understand. Linguistic study language to understand what? How it works, right? So, how it is used, and how it changes over time. So it means referring to what? Language. So linguistics study language to understand what? How means language works, how language used, how language evolves over time, right? So linguistic does not dictate. Dictate means what? Rule, right? So linguistics does not dictate or rule correct ways of speaking or writing. Instead, what it does, it desires to reveal or uncover the secrets behind how humans naturally use language in daily life, right? So, in that case, if you talk about that, the main components of linguistics, so we understood what is language, what is linguistics. Then we come to know about what the main components of linguistics. If you talk about main components of linguistics, so I can say that what, uh, as I pointed earlier, linguistic is nothing but a toolkit, instrument, right, for decoding the deeper part of the language, right? So in that case, if I talk about the important components of linguistic, it's called as a one, phonology. What is that phonology? Study of sound, right? Systematic sound, yeah. You can say that what, means phonology is nothing but phonology. Phono means sound, logy means study. So study of sound. So phonetics and phonology. In phonetics, what happened? Yes. So you can say that what generally phonetics examines what? Examines how sounds are produced, how per become part, right or not? Or per become pa, right? So phonology, phonetics is different, phonology is different. Phonology, phonetics, both are indicating sound, right? But phonetics examine, phonology says study, right? So phonology explores how sounds are organized and used in a language, isn't it? So that's what is called as phonetics and phonology. Now, next is called as a morphology. And we know that morphology is called as the use of or the study of word formation. Morphology, study of word formation. And when we talk about word formation, like how you, if I ask you a question, what is the means past tense of watch? You will say watched, ed. Watch become watched, right or no? What is the singular form of the watch in the present tense? You would say watches, right? If you say that watches, so he watches movies, right or not? So in that case, what if I talk about noun watch? What is the plural form of noun watch? You would say watches. Watches, many watches, right or not? So in that case, what you did actually, you are ed to or s or es to present what? Plurality or past tense. Plurality or past tense. So like we say cat become cats. So what happened? This is known as a morphology, study of word formation. Go, went, gone, isn't it, in verb? Go, went, gone. So go, goes, right? Go, goes. So in that case, this is the way morphology at work. Then third one is called as a syntax. When we talk about, we understood phonetics, phonology, then morphology, then we talk about syntax. Now, what is syntax? Syntax is nothing but the rules of sentence structure. When we talk about rules of sentence structure, syntax explains why the sentence where it is written she eats apples, why it is not written that eats apple she eats apple she. So in that case we find out that means because she eats apples is making sense, but eats she apples doesn't, because the order of the sentence doesn't perfect here, right? So therefore, syntax helps us what to rules of sentence structure. Then fourth one is called as a semantic. Now, what is semantic? The semantic helps us to understand the study of meaning. right? So semantics is what? A study of meaning. Like semantics helps us understand why one word has means two different meaning when it uses in a two different sentences, right? So she means she went to bank. She went to bank, deposit her money, right? She went to bank, deposit her money. She sits back of the river, isn't it? Or she most of the time visits means the bank of the river. Now here you would find out two sentences are there where the word bank is used in a different meaning. One bank is indicating that financial institution where we go for saving, means keeping our money for the saving purpose. But another bank is there which is called as a river bank, isn't it? So in this case, if I talk about semantics, job is to what helps us understand why a bank can mean a financial institution or the side of a river, right? Then we that is what the job of the semantics. Then the fifth one is called as a pragmatics. When we talk about pragmatics, what is that? Now the study of language in context, the study of language in context. For example, when someone says it is cold in here, right, they might actually mean what? Can you close the window? It means he doesn't tell you to close the window, but way of speaking or way of statement makes us realize that he wants us to close the window, isn't it? So, therefore, that is considered as a pragmatics. So next one is called as a language. Language is nothing but a world of diversity. When we say that diversity, it means what? It's scattered, it's spread. Means if you talk about that, there are somehow called as 7,000 languages around the world. 7,000 languages around the world, and each one has its own. Each one has its own what? Now, each one has its own unique sound system, right? When we say that unique sound system means phonology. So you each one has its own grammar rules, syntax and morphology, right? Syntax and morphology, and each one has its cultural cultural nuances that culture pragmatics. So in this case, despite their differences, despite their differences means you talk about language, differences in language. All languages share what? One quality, universal traits or qualities. So they combine sounds and they combine words, sounds to create what? Meaning. And they have the ability to what? Grow and adapt over time. Isn't it? So that is why you can say that language has a diversity, right? Next is called why we study linguistics. So I'm just going in a parallel. We talk about language, we talk about linguistics, right? So why study linguistics? So we know that linguistics is not just an academic subject. It is not just an academic subject. It influences many fields. So we don't study linguistics only for the academic purpose. You can study linguistic in diverse areas, like let's say the technology, right? So, or you talk about psychology, sociology, forensic, in all such kind of areas where linguistics helps, isn't it? Like how it helps in the technology innovations, right? Innovations like Siri, Alexa, and Google Translate that depends upon linguistics, right? Second is called psychology. How do children learn their first words? There also linguistics, help us or means linguistics influence. So third is called as a sociology. Why do people speak differently based on age, based on region, based on age, region, or group, social group? Isn't it? People speak different languages. Then fourth one is called as a forensics. When we talk about forensics, we understand also language analysis can help solve criminal cases, right? So in that case, language is not used only for the academic purpose, it is also used in a various other purposes, right? Then when next thought comes to the mind, it's called as how linguistics increases our understanding of language. How linguistics enhances or increases our understanding of language. Now, if you say that what we say hello, we say namaste, we say what jambo, we say siao, we say bonjour, we say also means you can say yeah, hola or ihola, right? So you would find out that linguistics, that's what means uh, use the various methods, isn't it? So linguistic provides a systematic way. Linguistic provides a systematic way to analyze and understand language, right? While language is the tool, language is the tool we use every day. Linguistics helps us what? Uncover its mechanics. First, so linguistics helps us preserve, save endangered languages. So linguistics also develops new ways of for humans and machines to communicate. New ways for humans and machines to communicate. So it is like what? It is like studying a masterpiece. It is like studying a masterpiece, not to judge it, right? But to appreciate its difficulty and the beauty, isn't it? Got the point? Now, the next is called as linguistics. What the takeaway we draw from it? We draw that what linguistics and language are deeply connected. That together they reveal the most deeper and essential part of being human. So our ability to communicate, whether you are, captivated by the sounds of ancient languages or the rise of modern slang, the way, languages change. So, or the mystery of how we means acquire language. Exploring linguistics is a journey worth taking. So that is why if you talk about in the next time somebody say hello, write a test or listen to a conversation, remember you are participating in one of the human's greatest marvels. What is that marvels? That called as a language. Right. So that is what you would find out in the first title called as linguistics and language. Isn't it? Now, let's come to the next one. The next one is called as what is linguistics and development in the history of linguistic studies. This is the second part which is asked here in your code 2, Unit 2. Right. So, what is linguistics and development in the history of linguistic studies? Now, if I say that we realize or we understood what is linguistic, linguistic is the scientific study of the language or language, how it works, how it is used, and how it changes over time. Instead of teaching people how to speak or write correctly, linguistics does what? Linguistic focuses on understanding and analyzing how humans naturally communicate. That is what linguistics does. And therefore, if you talk about the field, linguistic field connects with many disciplines like you can say psychology, sociology, computer science, and anthropology, right? So, and it includes several key areas to study that called as a phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics, isn't it? So, if you talk about that, means all such kind of a things are clearly indicating what linguistic is or what is linguistics. Now, when we talk about the history of linguistics, means then you can find out you need to go to the centuries, right? The history of linguistics spans centuries, changing alongside philosophical, scientific, and cultural changes, right? So, if I talk about the history of linguistics or ancient linguistics, we find out couple of people, right, who whose contribution in the language, right. Now, if I ask you, who is the first one that invented or discovered, you can say that grammar or linguistics, you can say Panini. Panini. Who is Panini? Now, he belongs to 4th century CB. India's means you can say Panini's. If you read Panini's Astadahi, right? So you would find out one of the earliest systematic grammars. What is the name of that grammar book? Astadahi. Who is the writer? Panini, right? So, and which language he wrote it? He described in Sanskrit, right? Through clear and rule-based methods. Panini's work profoundly influenced to modern linguistics, right? Second is called the Greece. If you talk about 5th and 4th century BC, right? So philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, and you can talk about many more are there. Socrates also. So, but I'm talking about philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, their relationship between language logic, right, and language logic and meaning that takes the ground working for linguistic theory. Who means of 4th century BC, and the two are called as Plato and Aristotle. Right, 3rd century BC, Panini. Right, sorry, I did a mistake here. 4th century BC, Panini. 5th and 4th century BC, it's called as a Plato and Aristotle. Right, then and Greece. Next comes Rome. Right, in Rome you would find out 1st century BC. Right. And here you would find out that what scholars such as Varro, 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 and Priscian. So scholars, they are called as scholars. So scholars such as Varro and Priscian, they studied Latin grammar, and their aim is to preserve, save it for what? Administrative and scholarly purpose. Right. So this is what you would find out ancient linguistics, right? Where we talk about whom? Panini, Aristotle, Plato, then Priscian and Varro, right? So 4th century BC, 4th and 5th century BC, and 1st century BC, isn't it? So in that case, those are nothing but called as ancient linguistics. The second one you talk about is called as medieval linguistics. And when we talk about medieval linguistics, it's focused on preserving religious text. Preserving religious. What do you mean by preserving? That called as saving, keeping safe on preserving religious text. And basically, when we talk about medieval linguistics, we find out when Europe and Islamic world, right? So, if you go to the Europe, or if you think about the Europe in medieval linguistics, we find out how analyzed scholars analyzed what Latin and Greek to why to interpret the Bible and classical text. So, second is called the Islamic world. Linguistics like Sibawe advanced the study of Arabic grammar and phonetics and producing what detailed analysis of sounds and sounds and structure, right? So that is what. So ancient linguistics, medieval linguistics. Then the third is called as Renaissance and early modern linguistics, right? Renaissance and early modern linguistics in the time period of 15th and 18th century. 15th and 18th century. So, what happened in this Renaissance and early modern linguistics? It increased interest in vernacular languages, right? So, development of grammars for European languages to document and preserve them. Second is called as a comparative studies of languages began. So, and it leads to nothing but early ideas about historical linguistics, right? That's what you would find out. Then, if you go to the next one, in 4, we can talk about Port Royal grammar. Port Royal grammar. So, in the year of 1660, And Port Royal grammar indicates that it is an attempt to describe what universal grammar principles that actually means underlie all languages, right? Then, beside this, we find beside Renaissance, we find out the fourth one, which is called as a historical linguistics that came on 19th century. So when we talk about historical system linguistics, so this is the kind of linguistics where we focus on systematic study of language that change over time, right? Like the writers called as William Jones. We talk about Jacob Grimm, or you talk about Franz Bopp, right? So William Jones, who proposed the Indo-European language family, noting links between Sanskrit, Greek, and Latin. And Jacob Grimm, who developed nothing but a Grimm's law, who also explains sound changes in Germanic language. Then the third one is called as Franz Bopp. So Franz Bopp focused on comparative philology, analyzing similarities in language structures. Give me a second. Hello. Yeah, hello. Yeah, speaking, sir. Okay. No, no, no. Okay, so what do we find out? Mm, I'll give you the notes, right? I'll share you the notes. Yeah, so we talk about what William Jones and Jacob Grimm and Franz Bopp, right? So these are the people who generally focus on what a systematic study of language that change over time, right? Then the fifth one is called as a modern linguistics. So when and modern linguistics that came on 20th century, isn't it? So and what modern linguistics tries to do now, linguistics transformed in this particular time. Linguistics transformed into a formal science and with defined methodologies, right? Formal science and with defined methodologies. Like in modern linguistics, you would find out that structuralism, right? So when we talk about structuralism, so here you meet nothing but the famous key conceptor whose name is called as Ferdinand de Saussure. Ferdinand de Saussure, right? So who introduced nothing but the main concepts like language system, right? Ferdinand de Saussure. So what did he do? Now, he introduced language system, and he also introduced speech, which is known as a parole. Parole, parole is known as a speech, and language system, which is known as a lingua, right? And the idea of nothing but linguistic sign, right? Linguistic sign, that signifier and signifier, right? So structuralism also focused on what analyzing language as an interconnected system, right? Then language is known as a what? Interconnected system. The second one is called as a generative linguistics. Generative linguistics. So, and when you talk about structuralism, you talk about Ferdinand de Saussure, right? When you talk about generative linguistics, you talk about Noam Chomsky, right? Noam Chomsky. Who is he? Now, he is again called as a famous means a writer and famous linguistic also, right? So who's introducing a transformational generative grammar, transformational generative grammar, and the idea of universal grammar that emphasizing humans inborn linguistic ability, right? So the kind of a grammar that called as a transformational, universal grammar that emphasizes what? That called as a human's innate linguistic ability. Then you understood structuralism. You also understood about Noam Chomsky's generative linguistics. Then the third one is called as a phonology and phonetics. Phonology and phonetics. So what? Well, who are there? In the modern linguistics, you would find out scholars like Roman Jacobson, right? Roman Jacobson and Daniel Jones. Roman Jacobson and Daniel Jones. So these are the two scholars advanced in the scientific study of language sounds. They actually increased nothing but, or they actually gave importance to the study of language sounds, right? Then, besides structuralism, besides generative linguistic phonology and phonetics, we also find out sociolinguistics. Sociolinguistics. And what is the job of the sociolinguistics? Now, it examined how social factors like class, gender, ethnicity, so those affect language, isn't it? Sociolinguistics, no, class, gender, and gender means what? Male, female, and transgender. So how they communicate, the way male communicate, do you think that the woman communicate in the same way? No, right? So the class, the way rich people can speak, poor people cannot, right? So ethnicity, it's affect language use also. William Labor, William Labor, and pioneered this field. Pioneered means what? He became the leader of this field. Which field? Sociolinguistics, right? Then we talk about computational linguistics. When we talk about computational linguistics, here we talk about technological advances. Right. So, means computational linguistics that came out with the technological advances, focusing on what? Machine translation, right? The speech recognition and natural language processing, right? Natural language processing. So, those are the things. So in that case, if you talk about, we discussed nothing but ancient linguistics, then after medieval linguistics, Renaissance and early modern linguistics, historical linguistics, modern linguistics, and we will reach to the last one that's called as a contemporary linguistics of 21st century. Right. So, and when we talk about contemporary linguistics, it means we emphasize on interdisciplinary research. And in which, what do we find out? Means we find out that what means in contemporary linguistics of the 21st century, cognitive linguistics. Do you understand cognitive linguistics? If I talk about cognitive linguistics, that called as studies. Studies how language reflects and influences thoughts. So generally, cognitive linguistics tells us what means how language reflects and influences our thought, right? Even we also have a neurolinguistics, neurolinguistics that investigates how the brain process function or how the brain process recognize language. Right. So third is called the corpus language. So corpus language is nothing but analyze that language patterns. Analyze what? Language pattern that using nothing but a vast digital text collection. Right. So corpus linguistics. Then the fourth one is called as artificial intelligence. Right. And when we talk about AI, artificial intelligence, so that nothing but advances in what? Computational linguistics. Right. So, and you could find out that it enables tools like what? Chatbots, you know that ChatGPT, speech assistants like Siri, Alexa, Google, right, and translation software. Many of the translation software, these are nothing but called as artificial intelligence, right? So, and the fifth one is called as a language preservation. So, when we talk about language preservation, it gives efforts to document and say endangered and indigenous local language. So the local languages, those are critical. So it tries to keep it, isn't it? So all total, if you talk about that, linguistics has grown from what? A philosophical inquiry to a rigorous scientific discipline, right? Philosophical inquiry to rigorous scientific discipline, isn't it? So what do we find out? We find out from the old, like 4th century BC, right? 5th century BC, 1st century BC. ancient linguistic to what do we find out? 21st century we see, isn't it? So in this, what we draw that what linguistics has grown from what philosophical inquiry to a rigorous scientific discipline, from Panini's ancient grammar to AI-driven language tools, isn't it? So the field reflects what? The field reflects humanity's, enduring or bending or creating interest, curiosity about communication and its role in shaping society. Right. So today linguistics does what or continues to change. Linguistics, merges traditional studies with nothing but a cutting edge technology to explore nothing but a new era or new horizons. Right? Got my point? Fine. I think what's the time? 11:55. We have 5 minutes more also. Okay. So you